an individual human is just one soul. So you just have this one microcosm of the whole thing. The belief system that you subscribe to determines the macro view that you will get in the long run. By believing in God, you're causing that to come into your existence. You're opening an energetic channel that allows for the creator to come in and access you and help you and work on you in your life. If you don't open that channel with your own effort, then it doesn't happen for you. Humans must have spirituality in order to evolve. There is an intentional effort to make us stop evolving by getting you to not believe in it. And the way they've done that is by corrupting everything. If you want your future experience to have more truth in it, then your present moment has to have more truth in it. You want to be aligned with truth, which means you have to live it. You have to embody it. Embodying truth makes you discover more truth over time. It leads you to have more abilities and more competencies than you had before. And this becomes actually a really fun way to take your life because it becomes an adventure. It becomes a mystery. The way to go about it to find that deeper truth is you have to live it and embody it in every present moment, all of the time. That's the way you get there.
Hello, and a warm welcome to the Journey Journals. My name is Gaia from Life of Gaia, and today we're going to be exploring a profound and thought-provoking topic, and it's that of spiritual warfare. I'm very excited today to have Rael. Rael has been our guest already on the program. He is a professional Amanita forager and also happens to be a ceremonialist and a seeker. Now, the interesting thing about Rael is that he has a fascinating background and life story, which means he also brings an absolutely unique and valuable perspective to the table. Welcome to you, Rael.
Thank you so much for having me. Really happy we're finally getting to talk about this subject.
You are absolutely welcome. I know it's a subject that you're very passionate about and that's very near and dear to your heart. So let's jump right in. Could you please give us an overview on what exactly spiritual warfare is for you?
Yeah, so spiritual warfare is it's a broad subject, and the way to go about understanding it is to start off by understanding what a human really is. People believe that they are physical bodies. Here, most people have the general belief that they are physical and that when they die, they just sort of stop existing. It's sort of nothing happens after that. This belief actually puts you in a certain type of consciousness. It means you're a certain type of a person because of it. What I'm pointing at is that the type of person that you become is based off of your spiritual beliefs. If you believe in certain things spiritually, you will have one type of a life. And if you believe in other things, you will have a different type of a life. And you will be a different type of a person as well. And the ultimate deciding factor of whether you are one or the other is actually up to you, 100%. And the way that this works is that all human beings, we have the right to define how we look at things. You have the right to decide how you perceive and understand things and how you feel about things. And that is nobody can take that from you. So if you don't use that power, eventually you lose it. And so if you don't believe that you have the ability to see things differently for whatever reason, then you become a being that is less evolved. And so when we're talking about spiritual warfare, what we're talking about is the process of human evolution, and that there is unfortunately an intentional attempt to stop us from evolving. And this is based upon the fundamental belief about religion or spirituality. That as a human being, you have needs. And so there are things that you react to try to get your needs met. But the way in which you respond to your environment, whether it be through one feeling or another, actually determines the outcomes that happen. So what I'm saying is, if you in general look at life as if it is good and ordered and harmonious and synchronized, and somehow beyond your understanding, there is something, call it God or the higher power or the creator, there is something that is ordering everything. If you know this to be true, you have faith. And this is just a general attitude that you carry throughout life. It's just a way of being, of you understand that somehow things are going to be okay. And this isn't something that you need to question really or need to put a lot of thought into. It's just sort of an attitude. right? It's sort of saying life is good. It's kind of a feeling, a vibe kind of a thing, right? So what I'm saying is that the fundamental reality you experience is based off of how you perceive reality, how you look at life itself. If you fundamentally look at life as if it is good, it becomes more ordered and synchronized and harmonious over time, which means you have a more peaceful experience, which makes it much more easy to be happy and well and feel love and joy and all those things. But if you have the opposite perspective, if you believe there is no purpose to life, that nothing is ordered, that there is no God, that you're the one who's in control of everything, and if you don't personally control every single aspect of your life, that you're going to be in a lot of pain and die. And if you believe that, that becomes your reality. In a very fundamental way, what we think about life is causal. It's not analytical. So in some aspects of life, things are analytical when you think about them. But in the way I'm talking about, of like the subjective question of what is to be or not to be, this really is just up to you. And so, because no one can argue against this spiritual belief of do you think life is good or bad, that forms your religion. Whatever your base feeling is about this question, that forms the most fundamental part of your aura. That is what determines the outcome of your whole experience.
Rael,
So
how does your base experience originate?
it originates from your memories and your experiences and from the way that you see things in the present moment. It's primarily based upon your way of processing things within the present moment. But let me continue a little more before we go into questions. So if a person knows that they are connected to the source of everything, they're connected with nature and with the universe and with life itself, you feel much more at peace, right? Which then allows you to comfortably make good decisions and have a nicer, more organized life. Your life is easier because of that. Because this type of belief causes people to grow and evolve, because think about it. If you believe you're part of something greater, if you think there's a higher power, then it means that it's worth it to put in the effort to go do the things that are difficult because there's a higher purpose that's greater than you that needs to be accomplished. There's something that needs to be accomplished for everyone else. But if you don't believe that matters, if you think the only thing that matters is your own goals and your own physical body, like what you can max out in terms of whatever your physical pleasures are, food or alcohol or sex or whatever your thing is, if you think that's the purpose of your life, to get as much of that as possible, you're actually anti-religious, you're anti-spiritual. Because your consciousness, all of your attention of a person like that is going to be driven towards physical things, which are fleeting and superficial and not important, which means that they're going to neglect all of the important things of their character in order to get those things. Because if you prioritize the physical and the spirit and the superficial, then you neglect the spiritual. So the foundation of spiritual warfare is these two types of consciousness. One type that values the physical and thinks that the only thing that matters is control over physical perceptions and resources. And then the other consciousness, which understands that in some way, even the resources are part of this greater thing that we call God or the universe or life. And so you're just at peace with the things that happen. You're accepting of the things that happen a bit more, which allows you to be at peace and be patient. And by having this perspective, you gradually get a much clearer understanding of how life actually works by being accepting of it, starting off by being accepting of it. And so the spiritual war is essentially the war to convince humans that we are weak, that we are not able to change what we are or who we are, that we're not able to change our course in life, and definitely to keep you permanently distracted from the issues that actually matter. And the biggest and most obvious way in which humanity has been led astray, has been distracted from the truth, has been through the use of fiat currency, because it is developed based upon a lie, the lie that it is fair. So we all know that fiat currency is not created in a way that is fair. It's created like monopoly money. So because we use it, we're accepting a lie. And based upon that, all of the resources of our civilization are being suffocated because of this lie that we're all subscribing to and pretending like it's fair. And so because of that, you have a lot of people on this earth who pretend like everything is okay. And they have to force it to be okay in their own mind when it's really like totally corrupt and wrong. And we can all see that. And so there is a deeper strategy that's being played out here that I hope people can see that there is a real war to stop you from evolving. And if you want to evolve as a person, you have to take your faith pretty seriously.
You mentioned one. What are some other examples of spiritual warfare in our society today?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest one. So every single every single thing you see on the news, like right now they've got this thing about the truck bomb that went off at Trump Tower. Every single thing like this, the MH370, all of the stuff that you see on the news, it's there to keep you in this little circle, to keep your attention focused in the stuff that doesn't matter. It doesn't affect you at all. It has no impact on your life. Basically none. What would matter is if you did the things to, escape from slavery, mental slavery of the system, which is just lying to us left and right, which means that you would subscribe to truth. So if you spent your time focusing on things that are true to you and they matter to you and they are the most important thing for you to do, then your life will become more truthful and meaningful over time. But if you're only interested in making a buck and surviving, well, I mean, you might as well just give up on that. So then you might as well just pay attention to the news or to whatever's on the internet or TikTok or you might as well just go on a shopping spree. There's just nothing. I mean, there's just nothing matters if you're not going to dedicate yourself to something that's of a higher purpose. And so this is what is wanted. There is an intentional effort to stop our civilization from evolving, and this is how they're going about it by convincing people that they can't do it. And they do that by distracting you, and they do it in every method of distraction that is possible. I mentioned a few. They've also poisoned the water, the air, and the food, and all the medicine, and even all the religions. And it's really at this point up to the power of each individual person and your own spirit to decide what you really believe in. Do you believe you're part of connected to something greater, or do you believe you're just a bunch of atoms floating around in empty space for no reason?
Mm. You were speaking earlier about a person's view or outlook on life. How does this world view that a person has affect their future, I guess?
Worldviews initially start as analyses, but as I mentioned, they become causal, meaning if you maintain a belief for a long time, it starts to cause the reality that you're living in. So if a person doesn't believe in spirituality, that starts to become a self-reaffirming belief after a while. Their belief that God does not exist is reaffirmed through their experiences because they believe it, not because it's true, but it's because they believe it. So when you believe in something, you're generating a relative reality within the multiverse that is setting your energy on a trajectory towards a specific life experience or destiny. The way that happens is that every single thing you experience, your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions, generates an energy, and this energy has movement. And that movement is going to attach to and connect to things that are similar to it. So if you have a certain type of vibrational resonance, a certain type of emotion, you're going to end up with certain types of people around you. There are people who don't realize that this is the case. They don't understand that it works this way. What they do is they neglect their emotions. They don't think they matter. A lot of these people are completely trapped in fear. They'll tell you all day long that they're doing everything logically and that they're in an intellectual and they know what they're doing. Everyone says that. Yeah, everyone knows. Everyone thinks that. But when you look at a little bit deeper, you see that person is just a coward. They're completely scared. And this is so common because people don't have any idea of what I'm explaining is real. They don't understand that they can self-identify something, that they can self-define something. They don't even want to go in to try the process. So if a person can't learn that there's a higher power that is real, and we have to adhere to the deepest truth that we can, in order to align with more with the higher power, right? Because you want to be aligned with truth, which means you have to live it. You have to embody it. Embodying truth makes you discover more truth over time. And then you can grow as a person and evolve into something new. That's how evolution works for humans. Humans must have spirituality in order to evolve. And as I've said, there was an intentional effort to make us stop evolving by getting you to not believe in it. And the way they've done that is by corrupting everything. And they've painted a world for us that is so dark and it is so pessimistic. And there are so many problems that it seems impossible to solve. So the only problems that are fed to us, that are shown to us, are ones that are so unimportant that they can be solved, but they have no impact. Like, solving out what happened to MH370. Who cares? Who cares? Did you guys realize that, how many children have been abducted yesterday? A lot. I don't know how many. How come that's not on the news? It should be on the news. So you see that the priorities of what's taught to you and what's explained to you is not done in the right way. It's done in an intentionally distracting way to make unimportant things be the center of your attention so that you don't grow.
How do people return to truth?
It starts with acknowledging what you know to be true in your heart, which is inarguable. Like things that you have experienced and seen that no one can argue against, that you know to a certainty are true. That maybe you can't prove it to someone else, but you know they are. You have to start with these truths and live by them 100%. Don't ever in any moment look away from them. Always follow them. And as long as you keep doing this, you'll develop a greater understanding of who you are and of God over time. And slowly you come to develop more and learn more truths. And you find out the things you originally believed, it's slightly different. And then, you just keep evolving. But as long as you keep that pursuit of trying to find the deepest truth and live by it, you will eventually get there.
What role does faith play in all of this?
When I'm referring to faith, I'm referring to just the centered understanding that you aren't as a human in control of the whole universe. There are more factors involved, and those things are automatically ordered. This is the basic understanding of faith, and it's very important that people get what I'm saying. That you have to see this as it's just a knowing. Faith is a knowing. It's not a belief. It's not a guess. It's a knowing. It's like let me explain it to you this way. How did this whole planet get here from stardust? Apparently, they believe this was the Big Bang happened, and then there was stardust, and then now we have a planet full of life and people running around, and like this is how complicated things got. I'm pretty sure there's something ordered making this. I mean, you can call it evolution, that's fine, but then it's something. It's a system. Okay, evolution. And so there is a system that is causing things to become ordered over time, and you just acknowledge that's true. You don't have to know how it works. You don't have to understand it fully. You just know that it's true.
The question comes up for me. I mean, if there is a system behind all of this, right, then what's happening is also part of the system in some way.
That's true. Yeah, at a very macro scale, what's happening on the Earth is sort of like uh, it's sort of like a type of tide of an ocean. You think of the multiverse as a kind of an ocean. It has these energetic movements that you could sort of say are tides. And so, yeah, it has this period on the Earth where things get super bad, and that is done for certain reasons, and then that part ends, and then a really good part happens. So it's sort of like cleaning. So all of the bad stuff has been allowed to happen for a long time here to bring it to the surface so that it can be removed. That's essentially the reason, because otherwise, all of those people would just hide, and then they would just stay doing all of the wrong things in the civilization that would cause problems over time. So the Earth was like, no, 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 we're going to get rid of these people before we advance to the next level, and so that's what it's doing. But I did want to say here as well that base experience of a person who is at faith is peace. Whereas a person who does not have this, their base experience is fear. And by a person believing in fear, meaning that when they have fear, they trust it. They think that it is worth listening to, and they act upon it. When a person does this, you go down a dimension, meaning that your experience becomes more limited and less ordered and less good because you may act based out of fear or based out of shame or whatever your negative emotion is. And if you do this for too long, it generates a kind of inertia that's irreversible. And the same goes for peace and love as well. If you generate that energy for a long time, eventually that energy generates a constant that becomes part of your experience forever and cannot change. And it doesn't matter what happens, even if you die, you keep it. This is why it's worth it to work on yourself. But again, if a person is stuck in fear, the world won't look like this. The world will just look scary and isolated, and there's only problems and pain and bad things. And I mean, if that's what you believe is real, well, I guess that's what you get.
So, in your view, what you're saying is a lot of it really comes down to mind over matter, correct?
Basically, I mean, to an extent it is, but what I'm speaking about specifically is this really profound way of seeing things, right? You're changing the most profound thing that you can because that's all you can change. In most circumstances, we can't change very much of what's going on in this world. So, what you can do is make yourself aligned with the fact that this is happening because whatever you want to call it, God made this happen. So what are we going to do? Argue with it? Like, what are you smarter than God? No. So I mean, you just have to accept it's acceptance. So if we can come to acceptance about the present moment of it is this, and there is no way to argue with that. It is this. You might dislike it. You might disagree. You might think it should be different. Okay, but the universe doesn't agree with you because that's the way it is. So the universe is right, and you're wrong, and you have to accept it.
What are your thoughts on the idea? I mean, some people believe that we are God, that each person is a
Yeah.
representation of God in some way.
Well, we are made in the image of the creator, meaning that like we all have consciousness. So we have a small piece of creation,
Hmm.
right? You could think of the creator as all of the things combined. So it's the entire ocean of consciousness is all of God, whereas an individual human is just one soul. So you just have this one microcosm of the whole thing, the whole version. And what I'm saying is that the belief system that you subscribe to determines the macro view that you will get in the long run. So by believing in God, you're causing that to come into your existence. You're opening an energetic channel that allows for the creator to come in and access you and help you and work on you in your life. If you don't open that channel with your own effort, then it doesn't happen for you. That's how things work. I'm sorry. It's like your consciousness, you're a soul, you're allowed to self-define. If a person doesn't want to go along with the rest of creation, if they want to be everything negative and they want to create hate and pain for other people, they get to keep it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought process. And again, I keep circling back um to I look at everything else around me, right? I look at nature, for example, and there's even with the difficulties and the hardships and animals killing each other and a level of pretty intense cruelty within the system, there seems to be this incredible wisdom to everything, and everything seems to work hand in hand, and the one causes the other, but there seems to be a perfection to it. And so it brings up the question for me is that even what's happening that's in a very negative sense, is that still part of the system?
Yeah, so everything is part of the system. 100% of it is. The thing that matters the most is your own experience. Like you should be paying attention to your own experience and managing that as best as you can. The process of evolving as a human is the process of becoming self-responsible, meaning you become responsible for your emotions and your actions and your feelings and your thoughts. Every single thing you do, whether it be a thought, emotion, or anything, should always be intentional. That's the goal. How do you make it intentional? Well, you got to start by knowing what you're going for. So you just got to start by finding the truth within you. You got to build that truth and make it big and strong. Find a lot of it, and then you can start living by it. And once you start living by it, after a while, you'll experience things in a new way that you had not experienced them before. And you'll be like, oh, this is how you break out. You just have to go for it and realize that you're kind of making the experience any which way you look at it, and that's okay. Now, the bad things that happen, I need to mention as well. The multiverse is a very complex thing, which I probably won't explain too much because it's just too much to explain.
Could you
When I
give
first,
just a small explanation, just so that people, I mean, I get that it's a massive topic, but just to give people a little bit of context?
yeah, so when I first started studying the multiverse, I actually had never heard of the word the multiverse. I was doing very high dose ceremonies using ayahuasca and psilocybin, and I was encountering this enormous body of light fractals, which was growing out of what appeared to be just empty darkness. And I understood this to be the body of God. It's basically all of the experiences that are possible to happen that are occurring right now, and it's all housed within this structure. And it's expanding and growing and becoming something different all the time. And so this expansion leads to it running into abyss. So what we're saying is there's a concentration of light, and as it moves into darkness, it generates new universes like this one, which are physical. Physical universes only exist on the barrier on the outside next to abyss, and that's to prevent interaction of energy. This world is a place where new souls are generated. And every time new souls are generated, they will choose the direction of their soul through what they believe in.
Mhm.
If they want to believe in something high, and if they want to have faith, they can move to a higher dimension. Doesn't matter where they're born, doesn't matter the circumstances. Ultimately, by the way, no one can tell you that you're wrong or right about your life except for you. It's completely subjective what you think about life. And so when beings are born here, they evolve in this manner for many lifetimes, reincarnations, until eventually their soul reaches a certain state. And it will reach a state that's either basically like a one or a zero. And what this means is their state has to reach a point where their feeling of peace is so constant that it is incontrovertible, meaning it is inarguable. Nothing that could happen to them which would make them lose it. If you've reached that state, when you die, you go to a higher dimension and you never have to come back. And your evolution at that point becomes spiritual, meaning you exit the physical body, you never have to come back. And what you experience after that forever will be a dream that you can self-create. Like you determine the direction of the dream, more or less, and you get to experience it forever. That's what's waiting for you when you go, if you're faithful. If you're not, it's not so pretty. And unfortunately, this is also a reality because everything that is generated by the multiverse generates an opposite type of itself. So for every type of thing that could possibly exist, it does exist and is happening somewhere. This is the way the creator designed things, not to be a system of like, it's just designed to exist forever. It's not designed to be perfect in the way we think of perfect.
Right,
It's
and to
just designed to
provide
exist.
multiple possibilities to any situation.
Exactly.
Mm.
So it's not a perfect solution, but hey, the biggest problem is solved, which is every person exists forever, regardless of who you are, or where you're from. Your existence is eternal, cannot change under any circumstances, cannot change. All that can change is the content of experience, which comes from the base of how you see things, right? Your perspective on things.
So,
So
how do people get better or improve or come into control of their own state of being?
it comes from controlling your conscious attention, which, as I mentioned earlier, it starts with how you control your mind and your energy and what you put your time and attention into. So the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to live by and be the deepest truth that you know to be real and embody it with absolutely no quitting. I mean, absolute persistence and determination to make that truth real for you as hard as it could possibly be. And you don't let anything tell you that that's not true. This is the way to advance here. And the reason that it needs to be like this is because while there is a heaven, there is the opposite thing. And I'm really sorry, but entities are a real phenomena, and they both, each side works to try to compete for your soul. They want to grow their own societies, and both sides do, and they want you. And so you have to decide, what do you stand for and what do you want? Do you stand for someone who wants to things to be good and grow? Like, okay, then all you have to do is trust. It's just trusting life. But if you don't, if a person is so stuck in needing things and needing physical things, needing whatever, their needs, their desires, well, that can become a permanent energy loop, which they can never end up feeding, which, as an experience here on Earth would be pretty terrible. And so if you can't break out the repetitive pain cycles that you've been stuck in, then that person will end up in a dimension which is lower, and those cycles can continue there.
Question for you. Going back to accessing your deepest truth, right? It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you accessed yours through a variety of plant medicines. And I remember I did too, or at least I did. I'm not speaking for you. And it was 10 years ago, and I was very much one of those people who were very involved in the whole materialistic side, and just because I didn't know any better, or I'd never had any access to anything else. And it was through plant medicines that I accessed a truth that I have never ever experienced in my entire life. And it's as if every cell of my body knew it to be truth. It was undeniable. The challenge then, and it's certainly improved over the years, the challenge was then coming back into this world and having to live in a largely material world of paying bills and, education and a system that is for the most part, quite complicated to get out of. There was a huge disconnect for me for a very long period of time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
This feeling of being disconnected is so common here, and it's so many people have been through it. I've been through it. Everyone I think has. Of like, it's like this why. It doesn't make sense somehow, right? Because we have this feeling of being disconnected, and then we also have this feeling of this is not right, right? Like
Mhm.
most people, they also combine with it, like, but why? So to automatically have this response of this is not right is telling you something. Okay, so that this is common amongst people, and that this is what we're experiencing here is not normal, is the message I'm telling you. This level of disconnection from spirituality is extremely rare, extremely, extremely rare. We need to acknowledge that what's happening here is so serious that it has cut us off from our nature. Like the nature of a human being has been corroded and dissolved because of what has happened to us as a species. That damage happened in every which way you can think of, right? It happened through the money system, it happened through the taxation, through the way they did TV, music, all this, the way they're looking at, I can't even meet a family in the US anymore that still has family traditions. They dissolved the family unit. Like our species might collapse because of this war. And it's because of this feeling of disconnection, and that fundamental feeling of disconnection comes from feeling like we are not in the right place. It's this constant and perpetual barrage of energy that's designed to make us feel like we are not connected to one another. And they've done everything that you can imagine, and more than you can imagine, to make us disconnected from one another intentionally, including things like the language. Speaking in English is automatically a dysfunctional and confusing language. Everything has to be reiterated and respoken multiple times to make sure that you're saying the right thing. It's a wasteful, inefficient language. So because we have to use a language like this one, it makes it harder for us to cooperate, form cohesive groups, and then actually make decisions that might change the status quo. And so all of this is done intentionally to keep humans from evolving. And anyone who has felt like that, this feeling of disconnection, my encouragement to you is to go inside yourself and deeply meditate upon what you feel your life is for. Because all this stuff about paying bills and taxes and dealing with all the 9 to 5 stuff that we deal with, this is extremely rare. There aren't very many places anywhere in the multiverse you have to do those things. In most places, you're just given the resources you need to survive. There's no struggle for survival. So it's very strange what we're living through, and everyone should see, like, to some extent, that this is a strange experience, and that what we're living is not normal, and that to overcome the feeling of disconnection, you have to feel connected with something that's of a higher power, something that's beyond this world. That's the only way that you can make life work here. It's just too crazy any other way.
Yeah, I like what you said about language. I find it such a oftentimes such a limiting and diminishing experience because they're oftentimes just words don't even exist to describe certain feelings, certain experiences, certain ways of being. But yeah, for sure, language in and of itself is just, it's completely limiting. So, how can someone come to practice defining the truth internally rather than externally?
Let me respond first to the language comment you made.
Hmm.
So yeah, an example of a way they've contaminated language is you may have heard in the last 20, 30 years that in music, a lot of the modern hip hop, the people are literally just grunting into the music. They just use grunt noises, like animalistic, like, "Ugh," and that's part of the music. And so they want you to copy it and use this type of language yourself to reduce your intelligence to something that can't communicate, right? And so that you see like the contrast of like this is what's being pushed upon you so that you adopt it and use it like you adopt this grunt like tribal mentality where you can't even think of like how to open a refrigerator or something. That's what they want you to be. So how to find your highest truth? The way to go about it is within the present moment you have to live it. So there is an issue that people don't fully understand how time really works. Time actually works as a function of your experience. So within the present moment, you have certain memories and certain aspirations, and this forms an equation which leads to your present moment experience. And if you want your future experience to have more truth in it, then your present moment has to have more truth in it. And you aggregate it and accumulate it over time. And as you go, you discover deeper truths that are more fascinating. And it leads you to have more abilities and more competencies than you had before. And this becomes actually a really fun way to take your life because it becomes an adventure. It becomes a mystery. As you start to grow and discover new truths, it becomes this fascinating thing that you never could have expected it would be. So you may not have a comfortable life being spiritual. You may not have all the things you want, but it will definitely always be an adventure and it will always be fascinating. The way to go about it to find that deeper truth is you have to live it and embody it in every present moment, all of the time. That's the way you get there.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Rael. In closing, is there an overarching message that you have for the world around this topic?
My overarching message on this topic is that with a little bit of faith, if 1% of humanity developed very, very strong faith, we could turn the tides of what's happening to us in our world very, very fast within 1 year. Like if a small group of people very, very seriously developed faith in the way that I'm describing, and they lived it, they lived by that truth and they never changed it, things would change on the earth really quickly. Because at this point in time, the other side is pretty weak. They've tried a bunch of stuff that COVID didn't work out the way they wanted. They haven't got World War III to start yet. A lot of things they're disappointed about. So they're kind of flimsy right now. And if people want to take a stand, if you want to actually make a difference, just be the difference. You start embodying the truth that you know and live it, and that's the way forward. I believe that humanity can overcome 100% of the problems we are currently facing within 2 years. And I say that with absolute certainty because I know the power of faith because I've lived it. If enough people want to become faithful, we can change everything.
To close, I read a fascinating book by Charles Eisenstein, who's one of my favorite authors. He wrote Sacred Economics and a couple of other books. And in the book, More Beautiful World, Our Hearts Know Is Possible, he speaks about this, that we keep creating solutions, but the solutions keep creating more problems. And he says, until we come from the perspective that we acknowledge that we're all in this together and come from that belief system that there are no solutions.
Yeah, we have to ditch the individualistic mindset, right?
Yep.
Every person is putting all of their time and energy into just what they can only they can receive. Only their own physical body can benefit from. Yeah, of course everything's screwed up. Everyone's being selfish. So we have to change the fundamental behavior. People have to put their attention on what is going to serve humanity, what is going to be best for everyone and everything. That's where you should be focusing. And then in what way can you provide something to the world that will benefit all of humanity? Right? For me, it was mushroom foraging. This crazy, dangerous, ultra risky life where I had to do the super niche outlier type of activity to become who I was supposed to be, to give this kind of a message. Was it worth it? Yeah. Was it extremely hard? Yeah. Would I do it again? No. I almost died a bunch of times. I'm not doing that again. If a person can embody their truth so much that they live like that, oh man, we're going to change things really fast here.
Agreed. Well, I want to say thank you to you for being on this interview and for sharing your wisdom. I want to say thank you to you for being the difference. Thank you for your faith and for sharing your wisdom. Your life is absolutely an adventure, I have to say, from all the interviews that we've done together. And thank you for embodying that and living it fully.
I set out several years ago to prove that through faith, humans can do a lot. Maybe not anything yet, but we can do quite a lot. And I'm just getting started on proving that.
I look forward to following your journey and staying updated on that. Rael, thank you again for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge as always. To those of you who have been watching, if you've enjoyed the interview, please like, comment, share. I will put a link to how you can contact Rael down in the comments below. If you have questions for him, please put them there. And we'll also put links to the other two interviews on Amanita muscaria and on professional Amanita foraging, which I assure you are both fascinating. So thank you again for watching, and thank you, Rael, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Had a great time.